Really important, isn't it? How do you analyze investment property portfolio? Like, you cannot afford to build a great big unwieldy ship and not be like really on it, really on the numbers. But if you don't know what to do, you know, you're kind of at risk of like being like on an ice rink and it's skating away from underneath you. And I've seen people lose it all, and I do not want you to be one of those people. So I'll introduce myself, and then we're going to get on to analysing. And I'm looking forward to it, and I want you to take a ton of notes. So I am Susannah Cole. I run this YouTube channel. I've been creating YouTube channel videos for you guys since the early days of my property career. So you'll see me like walking up the street with a shaky camera because I was going to CrossFit and I was kind of working 12 hours a day. And, you know, life was super busy, super full, but also super fun. I did deal sourcing, which meant I packaged up deals. I sold them on to other people, and I earned a lot of money doing that. I then reinvested those, and I was always the biggest buyer of my deal packaging business. So I reinvested them into a property portfolio. I flipped. The majority of my flips were joint ventures because they were like cherry on top, funded by other people, where we took 50% of the profit and they got 50% of the profit. We did all the work. They did no work, but did all the funding. So everybody was pretty much a winner. And I bought myself a major property portfolio, service accommodation, single lets, multi-lets, student property. I now live half the time here in Bristol, and I'm just come back, if you can see my freckles, from Barcelona, where I live, because I bought myself an apartment for cash on my birthday a couple of years ago, 9 minutes from the sea. So you'll definitely see some videos from Barcelona as well. So I suppose what you could say is I reached my goal in property. And that goal may be a goal that chimes with you as well. I wanted to live life on my terms, number one. I wanted to know I had strong pension in the future. I hated the idea of being vulnerable and elderly one of these days with more wrinkles and not being able to do anything I wanted, to be really constrained. I hated the idea of being constrained, full stop. I really wanted to leave the 9 to 5, definitely wanted to come out of the rat race. I hated that dehumanizing thing that kind of, I don't know, you know, corporate jobs gave you. And you may feel the same. And property delivered me from all of that. But in order to get there, there is a bunch of hard work to be done. That is 100%. I'm never going to pretend to you that there isn't. But afterwards, you're like just chilling out in the med. So I've created all of these YouTube videos and playlists for you. So subscribe, like, and have a look at all the playlists. And also for you guys, I've got a website I spend a lot of time working on, very much to help you feel educated, feel confident, feel motivated, feel informed, feel that you know in detail how to succeed in property. And that is called thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. So hop on over there. We are like, I think we've taught over 10,000 people now, which is fabulous. And I love hearing stories of people succeeding. And that's really the education I would have wanted when I started. Right, let's get back to it, shall we? So how do you analyse your property portfolio? This isn't about analysing one deal, although this will really help you. It's about analysing a broader portfolio. So if you're just starting out, don't switch off, because this is going to be really useful for you when you're buying the first deal, the 10th deal, the 100th deal, depending on how many deals you want to do. And the good news for you is I literally have done a checklist. I sound like a teenager. I've literally done a checklist, and you can download it for free from my website. So hop on over there. Ready? Let's look at big picture analytics first. All right, in kind of big picture analytics on your spreadsheet or wherever you analyze it, I have a combination of Xero, which is an online kind of profit, well, it's your online bookkeeping, and also spreadsheets. So big picture, we want the total value of the asset, which is basically how much the property's worth, individually and collectively. So you'll probably put them as a spreadsheet, all of the properties, and then the one at the top. We want the total amount of equity you've got, because that's effectively your worth, if you like. So that is the total assets. So say the property is worth 300 grand and your mortgage was 150, then the equity is total asset value, 300, minus the mortgage, 150, which is 150. So you multiply that by 20, you're worth quite a lot, which is quite nice, isn't it? We want to know your loan to value. So what that means is, again, I'll do 100 grand property. how much of the property is a loan in comparison to its total value. So typically, people, when they start out, they'll get a 75% loan to value. So if the property is worth 100, they'll get a £75,000 loan. So how you work this out is you do the mortgage loan divided by the value of the property as a percentage. So £75,000 loan divided by 100 grand asset value as a percentage is 75%. Now, we want to be reducing that in the long run. We want to set strategic goals for that, which is why it's important as a big picture analytic. Next, profit. How much money should you be making? Simple, isn't it? What's your monthly profit? What's your annual profit? Simple. Next one is turnover. Because although there's that whole saying of turnover is ego and profit is king, actually, when you look at your turnover, you could be like, I wonder if I can improve this. I wonder if I could move it from a single let to a service accommodation. I wonder if I could do a loft extension and move it into there's lots of different ways of saying, how can I increase my sales with the same asset value? Interesting, isn't it? And then a weird one, but important. What is your capital gains tax or your corporation tax if you've bought it in a limited company? Why do you record that even if you're not selling it? So what you would do is you would record the total tax predicted that you'd have to pay if you sold it now. Because your equity, which everyone's like, I'm worth so-and-so. It's not really how much you're worth, because you're worth the equity, the amount of the property that you own, minus the tax. Bummer. But always useful to know, because you don't want to be thinking, do you know what, I'm going to sell that property and I'm going to get 250 grand in my pocket, when actually you have to pay like 80 grand tax or 70 grand tax or 40 grand tax. And you were predicting to get all that cash in and you suddenly realize you forgot about tax. So you need to know your tax position and what tax you would be paying on that property if you were to liquidate it. So those are the big picture analytics. Ready for the next bit? This is about managing your portfolio. This is what multi-millionaires do. So you want to know your percentage of repairs against the rent roll. It should be around 10%. I'm always a little bit over because I really like to keep my properties in really high condition. And a really dear friend of mine, and we do monthly KPIs, he's always under because he's just really tight. No, he says it's because his property portfolio is more modern than mine, and therefore I'm having to replace boilers, which, like this week I had a boiler, £3,800, and a washing machine, 300 quid. Yeah, it's just part of it, isn't it? And I'm having to replace roofs. So repairs. The next one is days void. Now I don't have days void, which may or may not be unusual. I think it's quite unusual. A, my property portfolio is really central in Bristol. B, because I slightly overspend on my repairs, it's always in really good nick. So when somebody comes to see the property, there tends to be a queue, and about 50% of the time at the moment, people are bidding higher than the rent I'm asking, which is nice, isn't it? And I don't do the viewings myself. I do outsourced tenant find in order to find tenants, so I don't ever meet the tenants. And then management costs. So for me, I'm kind of moving. I started off managing internally, started managing myself. I got to the point I employed 3 people to manage my property portfolio, part-time and full-time. So that was an internal cost. I then, a few years ago, changed that to outsourcing. So first we introduced technology. Remember, you eliminate, automate, outsource, and only then delegate. So you only want internal once you've gone through that whole process. So we put in a software system, which is brilliant, and it does a lot of the work for me. So today, the rents are due. Somebody hasn't paid. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, they'll be texted and they will be emailed automatically. Don't need to do a thing. Delicious, isn't it? And so then I moved to tenant find, which I'm currently at, where I pay people to do inspections, check-ins, check-outs, tenant find, but I still manage certification and handyman jobs like boilers and stuff like that. But I am shortly about to move to full management. So whatever the management cost is of your property portfolio, put that in. And remember, you're going to include things like insurance and stuff as well. It might be 15%, it might be 12%, it might be 10%, or if it's me, that's the tenant find plus the inventories. You know, because I quite like to keep an eye on the properties, and it's dead easy with automation. But identify what the cost is, target it, and then final bit on the property of portfolio management is identify your personal KPIs. So for me, one of them is reducing down the loan to value every year. Last month we paid 40 grand off a property. 2 months earlier we paid off totally 2 flats, like completely mortgage free. And also I think last month we paid off 17 grand off another property. And the reason we could only pay those is that's 10% of the mortgage. So for me, I have clear KPIs and I want to report against them on a monthly basis. And the biggest one for me at the moment is paying down debt, lowering my loan to value. You may be in a different place to me. And then 2 real ones that are relevant to you as a human being. What's your cost of capital as a proportion of the rent roll? So cost of capital is obviously your interest cost. Now, whether you're using private investors, as I used to, or whether you're using mortgages, as I currently am, because I'm kind of all set up, what is the total interest cost divided by your rent roll? And obviously then you use it as one of your KPIs, key performance indicators, to reduce it down. How can I reduce that cost of capital? Yes, you can pay it off or you can get cheaper lending. And then the other one, which is really real, you don't always see, and I'm going to have a cup of tea. Cheers, people. You don't always see educators talking about this because I'm a little bit more real. So what is the loan to value plus your age? It should be 100 or under. So if you're 20, technically, that allows you to get up to an 80% loan to value. If you're 50, technically, you want to be aiming for a 50% loan to value. If you're 40, you want to be aiming for a 60% loan to value. Now, don't freak out. You are going to start almost certainly at between 75 and 85% loan to value, and you're going to have a few sleepless nights, because most of us do. But there are 3 stages in property. Stage 1 is acquisition, stage 2 is pay down, and stage 3 for me is buying with cash or buying with lower lending. So even if you're starting out now and you're like, well, do you know what? I'm not actually going to use that age plus loan to value less than 100. I'm not going to use that until I'm kind of on stage 2. Tuck it behind your ear. Don't be one of those ninnies that goes bust if the economy changes. Just be sat there going, I'm so glad I watched Susannah's video. I'm so glad I tucked it behind my ear. And I'm so glad that 4 or 5 years into my property career, I started putting that out as really important. Why? Because when you get to 75, and okay, you might be like so young, you're thinking, Susannah, what are you even talking about? But I'm telling you, I'm now, well, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm now halfway through my life. And I look back and I was 21 yesterday. So it does happen fast. When you get to 65, 70, 75, they stop offering you mortgages. And so if you still have large lending, how are you going to deal with it? Don't want to be in that position, do you? And then the final bits, which I won't go over in this video, is really kind of the technical admin. You know, what should you be recording? I'll give you some hints, like the mortgage number, the account number, what the terms are of the mortgage, you know, how is it fixed, is it variable, how long is it fixed for? Oh, I'm giving you it now. How much can you pay down on an annual basis? Sometimes it's 10%, sometimes it's nothing. What are the redemption costs if you want to pay it back early? Is it 6%, 5%, 4%, 3%, 2%, or 1%? And when do those trigger in? Because sometimes you may decide it still makes sense to me to sell that property or to refinance that property. I'm going to take the pain and take the hit. But you've got to do it with knowledge. And if you've lost all that data because you've gone, thanks for the mortgage, you need that in your spreadsheet. But you know what to do? Most important thing, download it. It's called How to Analyse Your Property Portfolio. And it's a free checklist that is currently available on my website, which is thegoodpropertycompany.co.uk. So that's quite a lot. None of it is rocket science. None of it is too difficult. But what it means is when you're making financial decisions, and these are multi-million-pound financial decisions you're making, people, you're not sat there scratching your head going, how much? What? You're sitting there going, do you know what? I'm so glad I watched that video. I'm so glad I then spent 20 minutes putting it into action. And I'm so glad I keep it updated, because you can make the right financial decisions for you. Because why? Because property brings you financial freedom. It allows you to leave the 9 to 5. It allows you to run your life the way you want, living life on your terms. You know, Bristol at the moment, I've just come back from Barcelona, which is why I'm a little bit tanned. I live near the sea there. It's gorgeous. I'm about to see all my friends tonight. Beautiful. No corporate life, no politics, no someone telling me what to do. And that's what property can give you as well. And you 100%, if you put the work in and follow the processes and learn educate yourself, you totally can succeed. So good luck to you. Guys, I've written loads of free checklists for you. Here is another one over there. It is how to analyze your property portfolio. Do what the big guys do, and girls. Download it now, figure out how to analyze your property portfolio.